Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we honor and praise and celebrate the lives of those who truly make a difference in our communities. We want to thank Wilkes Communications, River Street Productions, and 100.9 WIFM for this opportunity. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be with you today. My featured guest is Chris Lakey. He's a significant role model in this community as he's a youth minister at Wilkesboro Methodist Church, and we're going to have an incredible experience today sharing his role in this community and molding the lives of youngsters. So, Chris, what an honor to have you, and if you will, just tell us about growing up here in this community and what life was about, if you will.
Okay, well, Gary, thanks for inviting me to be a part of this. I've lived in Wilkes County all my life. I'm 48 years old, and I am the brother of, I have 4 siblings, so I am next to the bottom in the line of siblings. And of course, my parents are still here, Arnold and Becky Lakey. I've always lived in North Wilkesboro, was raised here, went to C.C. Wright Elementary School, Wilkes Central High School, Woodward Junior High back when we had Woodward, and it was just a great atmosphere to be brought up in. The neighborhood that I lived in was very family oriented. A lot of good friends lived in the neighborhood, and they watched over each other. I remember times of being able to ride my bike up 115 to a gas station, and I get to the gas station, you buy your Coca-Cola and your Snickers bar, and they knew you, and they knew you as one of the Lakey boys. And so that name went on throughout school. You were not really known as, from your first name, you were known as a Lakey boy. And so got a lot of good friends that still live here, and a lot of people impacted my life as I was growing up. So Wilkes County, in my opinion, is a great place to live, great place to raise your kids and everything. It's just, I love it here. Honestly, I don't think there's really a better place to live. So I'm a Wilkes County boy all the way.
Tell us a little bit more about your mom and dad. What wonderful people, and that role model in your life.
Yeah, well, my dad worked for Lowe's, for I think around 40 to 42 years. And my mom worked at the hospital for several years. And can you imagine having to raise 5 kids? So they're great people.
Yeah.
A lot of love, a lot of compassion. I never went without anything. If I needed something, they were always there for me. Always there for our family, always supportive in anything that we wanted to do, whether it was sports or anything in school, whatever. They're always supportive and always provided for us. Got huge hearts. They love people. They love their community. They've both given so much to the community. One of the big things that my mom did was she got cancer several years ago, and thank God she was healed from that and everything. But through that, it got laid on her heart to get involved with Relay for Life.
Oh,
and through getting involved with Relay for Life, she mentioned it to my dad. And my dad, being a business type guy and all that, he took it and ran with it and started really getting involved in raising funds for to fight cancer and defeat it. And so, and they've done so much stuff. They've done a lot for the county. Yeah. And they're just great people.
One of my favorite pictures is of your dad at one of the Relay for Life annual weekend, if you will, and he has his head down, he's praying, and I shall treasure that connection with Arnold Lakey and the person that he is, and what an honor to have the Lakey name in my life, and thank you again.
Thank you for that.
Yep. Yeah. Past high school, some college?
Oh yeah, I went to Lees McRae College, graduated high school in '86, and went to Lees McRae College, but had a little bump in the road, and sort of didn't do too well my first year of college. Basically was trying to run away from stuff, if you want to be honest about it, and things were going on in my life. And didn't do too well, so I came back home. Sort of was in and out of school over here at the community college, at Wilkes Community College, and I was working some. And finally, probably around 91 or so, things began to click in my life. I gave my life to Christ in December of '88. And by the time about 91 came around, I decided to go back to school and went back to Lewis McRae. My mom graduated from Lewis McRae College, and so she came home one summer and told me that there was a new religious studies professor up there, and that she would like for me to meet him. So I said, well, I'll go. So I went up there, and I didn't get to meet the professor. I met someone else in the department, and I probably spent 2 hours or so just talking to him about school and about, what's in the studies and all that. Well, when I left that day, I told him, I said, well, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. So I decided to go back to school to get my religious studies degree. And from then on, it just, it went well. And I struggled a lot because school's not one thing it's not something I really do well. So, but I struggled a lot, but God got me through it. And it just led into other things in my life.
Right.
So, yeah.
You had another career with the East Coast. A little bit about what you were doing there, Chris.
Yeah. East Coast Millwork. I found out about East Coast from a book that I looked at Lowe's when I worked at Lowe's in Banner Elk while I was going to school.
Oh, you did?
That's how I found out about East Coast Millwork. And I asked one of the guys up there about East Coast, and they told me where they were located, and I was like, well, that's in my back door. So I decided to apply at East Coast Millwork. Ended up getting a job as a customer service rep. There was two things I really never wanted to do, and that was work on a computer and answer the telephone. Well, as a customer service rep, you had to do both of them. And so I got the job and stayed with East Coast for about 5 years. Loved it. I wanted to retire in the business world. I wanted to be like my dad and retire at East Coast Millwork and all that. But things changed in my life after that. God called me into the ministry after about 5 years working there. I loved the experience, getting to know people and the customers on the phone, and everybody at East Coast was really good to me. So, yeah, I had a good time there.
You said that God called you into the ministry. Would you share that a little bit with us? Yeah,
when I gave my life to Christ in December of '88, I was 20 years old. And right around 90, 91, I was in the hallway at the church, at Wilkesboro Methodist Church, and this guy by the name of Randall Woodruff approached me in the hallway, and I was just standing out next to the kitchen, and he looked at me, he said, would you like to start teaching the youth Sunday school class? And I was yeah, I'll do it. Okay, I mean, there's nothing, I didn't think about it, I just said, okay, I'll do it. And so I started teaching the class, and then it wasn't long after that, he asked me to be sort of like a youth director to help him out with the youth group on Sunday nights, and I said, yeah, I'll do that too. So I just sort of just jumped in to it. And I did youth ministry in that fashion at Wilkesboro for a while, and then ended up leaving youth ministry for about 6 months. And then Cheryl Welburn at Lewis Fork Baptist Church called me up and wanted me to come up there and help with his youth programs, probably around 95, something like 1995. And I said, yeah, I'll come up there. So I spent 5 years with Cheryl, but in 2000 is when God called me into the ministry full time. And I remember walking into East Coast one morning, and I was happy with my job, and I walked in and just felt this, whatever inside of me, that was like, I was done there. But I didn't know what to do afterwards. And then I remember walking into Lewis Fork same week. I walked in and said, I'm done here. But I didn't know my wife was pregnant with our one and only child, and now I'm not supposed to be at these two places. What am I supposed to do? And the opportunity came open at Wilkesboro for me to apply for a position there. And I kept telling them, no, I didn't want to go into youth ministry full time. I was happy where I was at. And about 3 people approached me. And finally, at the very last moment you could turn in your resume, I turned it in. And I said, all right, God, whatever you want to do with it. And I got my interview, and about a month and a half later, I was leaving the East Coast in Lewis Fork and going to Wilkesboro full time. And so that's where the ministry, full-time ministry, really started for me. It was in 2000.
You mentioned Joe McMillan.
Yeah.
And he's one of my heroes
Oh,
and a
yeah.
real role model.
Yeah.
Let's tell that about Joe, if you will.
Joe McMillan is always, whether he realized it or not, or realizes it today, has always had a great impact in my life. And it was in the little ways that he's had the impact. I remember as a little boy being brought up in the church, I remember him always telling me that God was going to use me one day, and me just sort of pushing it off to the side and saying, okay, thanks a lot, and moving on. And he still tells me that today. I mean, and so he would often say stuff like that to me. And I remember one time I went to a conference, and it was in Tennessee, and underneath the seat there was this rock, okay? And the guy was up there, and he was speaking about something, and he mentioned about writing the names of those people who have impacted your walk with Christ the most. And one of the names I put on there was Joe McMillan. I wrote it on the rock. Because of just those little simple ways of encouraging me, he impacted my life in a major way. Whether I realized it at the time or not, he made a difference in my life. And he still does today. He still comes to me and encourages me and tells me that God's going to do great things in my life and stuff. So Joe's he's just a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this started as a youngster, you said, and it's
Yeah.
been continued on to the day.
Yep. It started when I was young, and I don't know what age, but Joe is always one of those guys that would approach you, and you knew that he cared about you when he came to you, because you could just see it in the man. And so I really appreciate him for that.
So in your youth ministry, Chris Lakey, now you've already shared that you put in the resume and you were selected to be the youth director at Wilkesboro Methodist. Are there significant other training programs that go on for you even to this day? Or when you started that first night, you remember the first night?
The first day I started?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know really what to do in a way, because it was a new environment for me. But I had been doing some type of youth ministry for a while, so I
Okay.
sort of in a way knew what was coming, but it was a new environment, new teenagers, new adults to work with and all that. My training, you get on the job training. You learn a lot just by being with teenagers, and sometimes you have to fail to succeed. And I've done some of that and grown from it. I've had a lot of adults that have helped me along the way. I think the best training I've got was being there with them, because the big thing about youth ministries is you want to build a relationship with them. It's all about relationships. Them with you and you with them. Getting to know each other, getting to see the potential in each other's lives, that God has a purpose for each person, that Jesus loves them. And you just want to, let that shine through you to them. And so that's where all the training is, most of the trainings come from. But I do have some seminary training and all that I got later on in life. Yeah.
Chris, describe, is it Sunday night when you meet? Every week is it Sunday night?
We meet Wednesday nights.
Wednesday,
We meet Sunday nights, and of course Sunday mornings for Sunday school. So we meet 3 times a week.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, we meet a
Or
lot.
describe a group. How many youngsters will you normally be there, or tell us that?
Yeah, well, my group is not huge. We have an active group of between 20 and 25. You can expect anywhere between 15 to 20 on a given night. Not the same youth may not show up each night.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be a different group. A lot of the times they bring their friends and stuff, so that's really good. That's how the youth ministry is, about giving them the opportunity to take on the Great Commission and go out and reach their friends for Christ. And so they come in, and we usually meet for on Sunday nights we'll meet for 2 hours. On Wednesday night we'll meet for about an hour and a half, and a night can consist of games and a Bible study, a lot of fellowship time, and of course with teenagers you got to have food, so we always eat. We love to eat together, so sometimes we'll meet at either my house and just have a supper together and just spend some time together, or go out to eat or something like that together.
Wow.
But it's about building relationships.
Okay. You also have the opportunity to do some sermons when you're. Well, let's talk about the relationship with the minister, the head minister.
Yeah, well, I've been at Wilkesboro since 2000, and I'm on I think my fifth minister, I believe. Fifth minister. And this is the first time Wilkesboro's had a female minister in the history of Wilkesboro United Methodist Church. And her name is Karen Roberts. And I met Karen back in seminary around 2005, somewhere around in there, and had some classes with her. So I knew Karen as she was coming in. So we already had a relationship together. We knew each other. And we work well together. She is really good. The biggest thing about Karen is she's got a heart for the people. I mean, she really cares a lot for the people, and that's one thing I've noticed about her. And so yeah, she's been a great asset to the church, to Wilkesboro. Yeah.
So occasionally you'll get an opportunity to preach.
Yeah.
Tell us about preparing a sermon, and what goes into a sermon?
Yeah, I preach probably maybe 4 to 6 times a year, and it's one of the hardest things that I have to do.
Okay.
I'd rather stand up before the teenagers any time and get pied in the face or whatever, but stand up and preach God's Word is one of the hardest things because it's so important. You don't want to mess up, but in order for me to preach, a lot of study goes involved. A lot of reading the Scripture over and over and over again, letting it sink in and praying over it, making sure it's what God wants you to do. And of course, there's a lot of tools out there that you can use to help you understand it and help you to present it to the congregation, and stories you can use. And I like to put in a lot of personal stories. So often, if my parents are there, I embarrass them because I have to tell a story on myself or a story on them. So,
right.
But in the end, it goes well, and nobody's thrown anything at me, so
right.
we're all good. Yeah.
And so when did you start at Wilkesboro? You became the youth minister?
I became the youth minister in 2000.
Okay.
So in Easter of 2017 would be my 17th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're an ordained minister.
That's right.
What does that mean?
I'm an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church. Yeah. To get there, I had to have seminary, then go through a long process. For me, it was right at an 8-year process of writing papers and going before committees and getting approved or disapproved or whatever, and going back and fixing what the committees ask you to fix and stuff like that. So it's a long, drawn-out process for me, but to be an ordained elder in the church means that I feel like God has led me to the order of the church, to lead the congregation, to preach, to do the sacraments,
Okay.
the holy sacraments of baptism, communion, and that when called upon, I'm ready to take on a congregation of my own if the conference asked me to do so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've told me several times about the importance of mission trips.
Oh, yeah.
And share with us today, if you will, about how does that work and how do you decide where to go, and just really get into mission trips, if you will, Chris.
Yeah. Well, missions is really dear to my heart. I love mission work. I've been taking teenagers on mission trips ever since 2000. Well, actually before that, when I was at Lewis Fork, I was taking teenagers on mission trips to West Virginia. When I got to Wilkesboro, we started going to a place called Johns Island, which is below Charleston, South Carolina. And we go down there and do work projects, work on people's houses. And we deal with people who have been in ways overlooked by
That's a
whoever.
great word, overlooked.
Overlooked, and we go in and try to fix something that is wrong with their house that they can't afford to fix themselves.
Right.
And so the youth raise all the funds for their mission trip, and they do it through like yard sales or Wednesday night suppers or Valentine banquets and stuff like that to raise funds to go to Johns Island. We usually take a team of about 32 with us as adults and youth, and it costs us quite a bit of money, about $13,000 to go and do this.
For a week?
For a week. And
Okay.
we provide all the building supplies, all the materials and everything, and we provide all the labor for it all. So that's where some of that money that we raise, that's where it goes. Not only provides us a place to stay at the mission place, but it also provides the material needed for the people. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I was approached by one of my college students, Brad Triplett, and I think there's a couple more involved, about going on an international trip. Well, I never had a desire to go international. I always wanted to stay in the United States. And they wanted to go, so we went to a meeting that the church was having, and they found a trip to Guatemala they wanted to go on. So I said, well, if you really want to go to Guatemala, I'll go with you, and I hope you plan it. So we went to Guatemala and did mission work over there. And
You took your youngsters with you?
I took college students and some adults, yeah. Larry and Dee Dee Collar were great, and they basically led the group. I went with my college students and just sort of helped them out a little bit. But we raised the money for that, went over there and did some work projects over in Guatemala. And the funny thing about Guatemala, we were supposed to be there a week, and we were in this little village where you had no internet, no cell phone, you had nothing. And we were staying in a church, sleeping on the floor. I basically slept inside of a tent, inside of a church, on the floor, to keep the mosquitoes off of you and all that. Well, we were over there, and it rained about every day, Gary. About every day it rained. And on Thursday, we found out that we were supposed to leave out on Saturday. On Thursday, we found out that there was a volcano that erupted. And the volcano was right next to the airport. Well, we didn't think much about it until we left on Friday and got to the hotel we were going to stay at. When we got there, we found out that not only did the volcano erupt, but we were also in a tropical storm. That's where all the rain was coming from. And it just sort of set over Guatemala. And it delayed our flight for another week. And so we stayed in Guatemala for 2 weeks. We were only supposed to stay there once. So that was my first international experience. And the really neat thing about it was on the Friday before we were going to fly out on that Sunday, the extra week, we hooked up with a group called Hope International through Samaritan's Purse. They hooked us up with them because I wanted somebody to know that we were there and we were stuck. Well, anyway,
Wow.
They got us in, and when we went in to help them get ready for the people to come in eating food and stuff because of everything that's going on, there was this like metal structure that was up against a wall, and I asked them what it was, and they said it was somebody's house. And I said, what are you going to do with it? They said, well, somebody was supposed to come in and build it for them, but they can't because the airport shut down. I said, well, my group's here, we'll go and build it. And so we showed up and drove about an hour and a half and built this lady a metal structure, something you would put your mower in, okay? It's 315 square feet. and we built it on a concrete pad for her, and she had the biggest house in the village. Yeah. So that was my first international experience. It was, and that's why we were stuck over there another week, I think, to build that lady her house.
You mentioned a few minutes ago about repairing homes in South Carolina. So you've picked up some carpentry skills that you didn't have, or tell us about that.
Well, I can do a little bit, but I can't do a whole lot. I've watched and I've had some really good influences on that. Alan Davis is one, Mark Revel and Jerry Kilby, and so many others, just watching how they did stuff. And so, yeah, I can put up a wall now, I guess. So I'm not real good at it, but
Yeah.
I can do some stuff.
Well, you youngsters some of them come with good skills?
Well, not at first, but by the time they go on enough mission trips, they learn how to do some stuff. And that's one of the things we try to teach them is how to do some carpentry skills like that.
The fundraising. Paint a picture of an event of raising money so we'll understand what you mean by that.
Yeah. Well, we do different fundraisings for different mission trips. I mainly raise money for mission trips or outreach projects. With the college students, when we go to like Guatemala, and we've gone to Honduras for about 5 years, we do a lot of Wednesday night suppers, like chili cook-offs, Italian night, stuff like that, just try to bring in money to help with the trip. With the youth outreach projects, a lot of meals we do. I mean, everything revolves around food. So people like to eat, people need to eat. And so we use food as a way to get people in to raise some funds, and then the yard sales. We do 2 yard sales a year. That's not one of my favorite things to do, but we do it, and
it works.
It does. It's free money. People just bring stuff and for us to sell, and then when we sell it, people will show up. And we're so well known for our yard sales is they'll call us and ask us when we're doing our yard sales, because it's done so well. And I can't take credit for that. That's all the women. The women do that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm there. I'll pick up stuff, move stuff, but the women organize that. Yeah.
Chris Lakey, your family, your daughter and your wife, tell us a little bit their names and a little bit about them.
Yeah. Well. Me and my wife, we've been married for 20 years, and her name is Tamara.
Tamara.
And she works for Guardian Ad Litem,
Yeah.
which is out of the courthouse over here, and she does a great job with that. I'm going to mess up on what her title is. I think it's District Administrator or something, but she does a great job. She has a great compassion for the kids and for what she does, and we met through church, through a friend and everything, but it was, I'm glad I met her.
Yeah.
She's the love of my life.
She's a local lady?
She is. She's from Ferguson.
Okay.
Yeah, she's Ferguson. Her brother and I were real good friends in high school, but I never knew that he had a sister until it all started coming together when when we met each other. My daughter's Rebecca. She's a junior at Wilkes Central.
Yeah.
And she's my world. Both of them girls are my world.
Yeah.
She works at the smokehouse selling ice cream for them down there, and she's just a good girl. So I am very thankful to God for what He has given me in both of them. Anyway, she'll say that she's got me wrapped around her finger, but I don't think so. But she does. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Tell us about your blanket ministry.
Oh, my blankets. We've been handing out blankets for about 9 years now, and we've handed out about 22,000 blankets to the elementary school kids in Wilkes County. And that all started from, I used to go to New York City with Jackie Stone, and we hand out blankets, and I remember one night watching my youth prepare blankets to send with Jackie to New York in November or December several years ago, and thought about the kids here in Wilkes County, that surely there's probably some kids in Wilkes County that go to bed cold, just like in New York City. And so the youth and I we were on a retreat, and I brought up on Jefferson Mountain, and it was cold. And I just brought up the idea. I said, what do you think about doing blankets for the kids in Wilkes County? Because surely some of them go to bed cold. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So we started with one school, about 500 blankets. The next year, we went to 3 schools. And then the next year, it went to all 13 elementary schools. And so from then on, we've just kept handing them out, and people donate money for it, and we've handed out about 22,000 blankets to the
22,000
to the kids in Wilkes County. Yep.
Wow! And it just the idea just popped up when you were up at Jefferson.
Yeah, I was watching the youth one night fix blankets, and I remember going down Highway 901 after that and seeing this house that had plastic over the windows and some kids' toys out there, and I said, I think I'm going to mention this to my youth, and I did, and they said, let's do it. And so we started raising money, and so it was a youth-led project, and now 9 years or so later, 22,000 blankets handed out. Yep.
Tell us about your church, some of the role models there, like Robert Rosati and Sue, and just talk about some of these contributors that matter every day. Just tell us about some of those people.
Well, there's a lot of them. I was raised at Wilkesboro, in Wilkesboro United Methodist Church. So there's a lot of people that have watched me grow up from the time that I was little on up, and that have impacted my lives in some way, whether it's when I was singing in the choir or Sunday school class or something like that. Robert, you mentioned Robert. Robert, he's always there if I need anything. He's always there to give me good, honest advice, and that's very important, in somebody's life, for them to be honest with you about stuff.
Yeah.
And so, he's a great support of mine. The Davenports in the congregation have always been there. I mean, there's so many. Some have passed on and gone on to heaven, and that impacted me in major ways. And they're little simple ways, but I think the little simple impacts that people do in people's lives are major, because it changes you a little bit at a time, So,
Chris, I want to revisit the youth. It's on Wednesday night, Sunday morning. Are those? Do you have a program you go from week to week, or you just build on an idea? And how does that work?
Well, for me, I build on an idea, which often falls apart because something happens maybe in a teenager's life, or something happens in the county or in the world or something, that you have to change what you do to sort of let them discuss. But a lot of times you try to build on something and go with it. But we do a lot of outreaches on the times that we meet. So sometimes you're doing an outreach instead of sitting in the. Now,
what will that be?
Well, it could be going up to a community, which we've gone to several times in up in Wilkesboro, and done like a hot dog thing where you give out free hot dogs to the people. And you go door to door, or you set up tables where they come to you, and you just get to meet the people in that community and get to talk to them, show that somebody cares about them. It gives the youth the opportunity to reach out to other people, stuff like that. We've done barbecue things and all kinds, just try to reach the community.
So there are areas in Wilkes County right now about the profound poverty where you go to work with people.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great need out there. Sometimes we may not see it, but there is a need. And like with the blankets, this year when the teachers came up to me after we handed out the blankets and said the little girl asked her, "Can I keep this? You mean I can keep it?" And she said, "Yeah, you can keep it." And then there was a grandmother one time that said that, "I'm so thankful for this blanket because now my grandkids don't have to go to bed cold." So there's a need that we may not see, but when we go to these places, you begin to experience the need. You begin to understand it. And there is a great need in Wilkes County. Often I think it's hidden behind whatever, picture or whatever. It's hidden. But if you look deep enough, you'll see it. And we need to respond. I mean, there's people that are living in poverty. One thing I'll tell you is, one thing we do the first Wednesday of every month, so far for the last few months, is we've been providing a meal for not only the people at our church, the youth group, but we also have been taking the meal to a place called His Light Soup Kitchen, which is right beside of Arby's, which is led by Michael Brenniger. And we've been providing a meal there because he has several people throughout the week to come to his soup kitchen to eat. And so that there shows you there's a need. And on Wednesday nights, he'll go and pick up people and bring them. And of course, they'll have a worship service together, and then we get an opportunity to feed them. There's a great need out there.
So for that soup kitchen, the funding, how would, is it just kind of there's a will, there's a way, or how does that work?
You know, I'm not exactly sure how he raises the money. I know that churches give, and churches sign up to come and feed the people and all that, but I'm not sure how he gets all his funding. But I know just like we do, we take the food to them, and so right there, that helps them out, one night of providing a meal to the people without it coming out of his pocket or whatever.
An event like Oakwoods Grocery Methodist Men Golf Tournament.
Yeah.
Share with us the meaning of Robert and his group comes together, and you were with that 100-year-old man last year.
Clegg Cutler.
Yeah. Tell us about what really comes out of the fellowship and the spiritual growth from that golf tournament.
Yeah. Well, Robert has done an excellent job in leading that men's group in the church. And they meet first Tuesday of every month at the church. And they have a devotion and food, and together they eat together, and they also discuss stuff. But one of the biggest fundraisers is the golf tournament. And I can't remember exactly how much money they raise off of that, maybe around $10,000 or something like that. But the money goes back to the community. It goes to outreaches that they have. It also helps out the youth group when we go on the mission trip. They help us out. They help out our international mission trips and stuff like that. And so that money is done for their outreach projects, and which they do a lot. And it's through Robert's leadership that they have begun to do more outreach stuff. And he's actually allowed God to use him to take the men's group to a new level. Yeah. And it's just a great opportunity to come. I think you've been there.
Yeah, I've been a part of that. 4 or 5 years, I guess.
Yeah, and Clegg Cutler, if you've lived in Wilkes County for too long, you know Clegg Cutler.
Yeah.
And that is just a great man right there. Okay. That's just the best way I can describe him.
You've enriched lives today in a special way, and we want to thank Wilkes Communications and River Street Productions and 100.9 WIFM, and for the honor of having you here. Your life's been enriched by the journey.
Oh yeah.
Tell us a little bit about answering that call and what it means to you today.
Well, it wasn't a call that I was expecting. But it was very scary in a way, because I never really wanted to do youth ministry full time. I liked my life, but sometimes God leads us beyond that, and leads us in areas that may be where you may be a little bit nervous in, and so. He led me in a direction. I'm still walking through it. I don't know where God's going to take me from here, but the ministry is just an amazing adventure, especially working with teenagers. there's so much life there, so much purpose there. And one thing that I always want them to know is that Jesus loves them. And I hope that my life in some way has been a witness to them, to show them that they do have purpose, that God created them for a reason. They created to have a relationship with Him, that He wants a relationship with them. And that's what this season's about, Christmas, a time when God came to us in human form, in human flesh, Emmanuel, God with us, so that we can see that He loves us and that He wants that relationship. And I want teenagers to see that. And I want to see them fall in love with Christ, because Christ loves them so much. And
as they follow your walk in life, they learn how to deal with life and to give it a lot, and that the more they give, the more that they'll have to give. And
we hope so.
Thank you for being with us today, and
Thank you,
what
Gary.
a blessing to have you. Thank you.
It's been fun.